Okay, the next agenda item is Asa Gordon on the Right to Vote Act summary.
Thank you. One thing we established at the Right to Vote Act, for those who were present, is that we don't need a right to vote amendment. What we need is a right to vote act. The difference is the Right to Vote Act is to enforce the malapportionment penalty that gives us, the citizens, the right to vote on the second section of the 14th Amendment. Now, at www.electors.us, easy to remember, www.electors.us is the website that addresses this issue. There are 3 green releases that relates to this issue at that website. And the lady who led us on the road to this, Pat Lamont, is that if you click on that, you'll see a clip where she announced her support for the Carl Lamont campaign for this issue. Now, I would like to make an announcement that these press releases have already had a tremendous impact on a congressional effort that would have undermined one of the issues that we have, IRV. There was an amendment that had been proposed that would have rendered IRV unconstitutional. It was to constitutionalize winner take all. It was unfortunately put forth by some of the most progressive members of Congress. That bill has now been altered, and it has now dropped the provision that would have constitutionalized winner take all, and it now, you Greens are the reason why, the word got back to me, that bill was altered. You have altered a congressional bill. I will be holding a Q&A session for those who attended, and anyone else who wants to come about this issue, at the John Mabee Hall that we have on the first floor, room in the student lounge, and room 1028 from 5 to 7. Now, one debate that question, I'm going to be calling on the Greens to pass a resolution adopting, I put on everybody's, I think, desk there, the Right to Vote Act. I want to put that before the Black Caucus when they meet in September, that this is our position on what should be done in order to effect our right to vote. And so I hope you would start reviewing that and making arrangements to try to make a decision on that, if you can, at this convention, so I can have that ready to present to the Black Caucus when they meet in September. This is the Democratic Black Caucus, all right? So if you get any questions about what is your position on the Right to Vote Act or Right to Vote Amendment, and they say, well, a certain Black caucus has been talking about a Right to Vote Amendment, say, well, we have our own Black caucus and we have a Right to Vote Act, and that Black caucus is acting, said Frederick Douglass supported this position, so we will, if you don't mind, default to them. All right? Now, to understand briefly what the problem is with winner take all and how, in effect, it preserves what the first section is. I hope more of you would come to that section that had to do with the subject of white privilege, is how white privilege is embodied into the electoral college system in the way we vote now.
Freedom's not America's gift to the world. Freedom is the Almighty God's gift to each man and woman in this world.
August the 6th, 2000, at the Unity Journalists of Color Convention, Roland Martin asked President George W. Bush, in your remarks you said that 8 million people in Afghanistan registered to vote, and as you said, exercise their God-given right to vote. That may be a right from God, but it's not guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution. And in this age of new constitutional amendments, will you endorse a constitutional amendment guaranteeing every American the right to vote in federal elections? President Bush responded, "I'll consider it. I'll consider it."
So what he is sending us over to die for in Iraq, when it comes to considering, supposedly, that we don't need it, for the right to vote here, he will only consider. Now, what constituents is he concerned about? A constituent that really does not care about majority rule and the right to vote. Here is a casual interview of what I call Bush Lights on majoritarian democracy. Listen very closely. It's about a minute.
So where are you guys from?
Texas.
And what brings you out here today?
Bush.
Bush?
Great learning experience.
Okay. What do you guys think of the election process this year?
Go ahead. I think it's a good thing. If they went just by popular votes, and I'd seriously just let California and New York take a vote for our president. So it's
Did you catch her? You catch how young she is? She said if we would have had just popular vote, we may as well let New York and California vote for our president. Look at her age. She's very understanding of what the power is of our system that gives disproportionate power to minority populations of white population to frustrate a majority that may undermine that privilege. And then, when so that young generation understands. They say, if we believe in majority, so the next question you're going to ask, you mean you don't believe in majority rule? Listen to our answer.
good that they didn't just go by that. It's not like
So you don't think the majority should vote for a president?
Absolutely not. I think
that's what it
it's been working for 200 years. That's why it is the way it is, the great nation that we have. Why should we change?
They can claim all they want they won the popular vote. The popular vote in $1.50 buys you a cup of coffee at Dunkin' Donuts. Read the Constitution.
So I want you to understand, they are not for majority rule. They're not. I want you to understand, so the difficulty you may have, you go out there and you say, if they only understood what it's about, I want you to understand, the Bush lights understand. They know it's unfair. I want you to be aware and not be naive. They don't care because it gives them disproportionate power. Now, how does that work? They understand this much better than some of us as progressives do. This is allocation of presidential electors that's just concentrated on the former Confederate states, what we call solid red. Now, I want you to understand something. It's only solid red because of winner take all. We are not red and blue. If you go to proportional apportionment, the percentage of vote in all the states in America, we are purple with a little bit of green. So first, to get green, we got to get the country purple. And to get them purple, to recognize that Republicans are disfranchised in certain states, Democrats are franchised in other states, and we got to get back to what the original founding. Now look at this breaking down to the former Confederate states. Winner take all, the former Confederate states control 147 presidential electors. That's over half the electors needed to select the president of the United States. From the former 11 states of the Confederate, you got 50% already controlled by those states. Now, suppose you went to the district system. If you just look at the House of Representatives, just by the representatives, it's only a difference of 3 votes. 3. Now, if you go to the add in the Senate, which brings in that bias again, you only have a difference of about 15 votes, right? As opposed to 147. That's under the district system if we had it like that. Now, let's go to proportional apportionment. The Republicans would only get 80. The Democrats would have 64. So why are we accepting the system? Why are Democrats accepting the system when they lose 64 presidential elections from the former Confederate States? Here's the ugly reason behind it. I want to show you the percentage votes. These are the percentages. There is not one southern state. There is not one southern state, except for Texas, in which the Democrats get less than 40% of the vote. Why are you whites allowing over 40%? You know, the half of the blacks being denied the vote. My question is, why are you whites allowing 40% of your votes to be cast out and thrown away? Why? Could this be the reason? Now, you break down the total votes predicated on black and white. Break it down to black and white. And you begin to see what is occurring. This is still the Confederate States. 147 states. If you have proportional apportionment, the votes that will be recorded in the blue. I'm assuming now, and this is unfair, but all whites are voting red. All right, I'm being a little unfair. And all the blacks, and that's not quite true, are voting blue. But look at what happened. The number of proportional electors from the former Confederate States would mean that 28 presidential electors would be predicated on the black vote in the southern states. What is that? That's the election. That means Carey would have won. That means Gore would have won. Ladies and gentlemen, the Electoral College is designed so that minorities' votes don't count. What it is, it's not in how many people are counted to vote. It's the counting of the vote, how the votes are counted. That's what the system is about. Electoral college is inherently structurally racist. By definition, it in essence says that if we have winner take all, the majority of the country, which is a white majority, will always be deciding what the outcome will be. The reason why Gore dropped out of the race, the reason why Carey dropped out of the race, and y'all ask, why did they fight for the recount? Let's be clear. Gore won the popular vote because of the black vote. Gore lost the white vote. He lost 60% of white males, 52% of white women. He only won the majority vote because of the 90% of black vote. This is what they're looking at now in the Electoral College. They say, my God, now that blacks can vote, and they represent 12% of the population, for whites to get the candidate they want, they have to have a difference. If they're voting 9%, listen closely, of not just 5% difference between the white candidates, 7% difference between the white candidates. There has to be almost a 10% difference. Black minorities can trump with over a solid majority of whites vote for their candidate. The Supreme Court stepped in because 90% of what represented the black aspirations was about to triumph over what represented 54% of white population. And Gore dropped out because he said, look, if I fight and I win, the New York Times, the Washington Post will all say he won by playing a race card. What's a race card? He won the election and it was clear what the right choice was by counting black votes. Why did Carey drop out? What were you asking Carey to do? The white choice was already in. The only thing that would overturn it for Carey to win was counting the black vote. He said, I do not want the election so badly that I will actually go to the point where I would overturn the clear white choice by crowning the non-white choice.
About 2 minutes.
All right, thank you. So, that is what it's about. Now, the reason why I'm appealing to you, frankly and boldly, is because you are in the spirit of the abolitionists. The abolitionists, let me tell you what your abolitionists did. What whites did following the Civil War, when there was no black caucus, when there was no NAACP, there was no ACLU, the white abolitionists were the ones who passed this 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And when they did it, they had to disfranchise all of the whites of the South who would not pass the amendment. They disfranchised their own race. The whites of the South gave the votes to the blacks, and the blacks voted in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. That's what white abolitionists do. The Greens are in the spirit about it. They did it, you know what they did? They asked, why would you do this? Disfranchise your own race. That debate was in Congress. I talked to it tonight. I showed you the papers of the debate at that time. And they said, we're doing it because that's what's fair. And so in the spirit of Thaddeus Stevens, in the theories of Charles Sumner, in the spirit of all of those white and black soldiers that sacrificed themselves in the Civil War, where this is their culmination of their sacrifice, that's what the legacy would have, the spirit of that abolitionism. You've already had Seth Green in defeating a bill. Now, the irony is, the proponents of that bill were all black caucus. So we get it wrong. We got it totally wrong. It took you white progressives out here to correct that wrong response by progressive black caucus. So we ain't got a monopoly on it, understand? So I want to thank you and hope that you will continue to support this process to enforce the second step in the 14th Amendment and the right to vote out. Thank you.
Thank you, Asa.